Hey! Come here!
Resident Evil Director's Cut, a game which in my opinion has aged as well as a glass of milk. There are many things that are terrifying about the first title in this series, a few examples being the horrific voice acting.
Jill, here's a lockpick. It might be handy if you, the master of unlocking, take it with you.
Horrible tank controls, downright offensive graphics,
Stay alert!
and who could forget the absolutely dreadful puzzles in this game. I'm of course kidding. If you know anything about me, which hopefully you don't because they'll be a little bit creepy, then you'll know that Resident Evil is one of my favourite game franchises ever. I love it so much, and the first Resident Evil is very much a good reason why I love it so much. It's true that the game hasn't aged so well, and really we should appreciate the game for what it was and not what it is right now, but in this review I'll be telling you why I like the game. So let's begin. Starting off easy, I'm going to talk about story. The basic premise is that a group of elite special forces known as STARS are sent in to find their teammates from Bravo team who have disappeared during the middle of their mission, and upon arriving at the scene, STARS Alpha team are quickly chased down by a bunch of zombie dogs and are then forced to seek refuge within the nearby mansion, and with that the game begins and it's up to the player to survive and investigate the goings on of the mansion.
Albert Wesker.
With all that said, the game provides a pretty entertaining story for my tastes, and luckily for you guys the game also contains documents, notes and diary entries that can be found and read in-game, which provide even more backstory to your current situation. Another thing too is that the game also contains various different endings. However, not all is good because, unless you couldn't tell, the voice acting, well, it's not really winning any awards, if you get what I mean, and to be honest this does affect the overall storytelling for me anyways, because it's really hard to take anything serious in this game when you got such horrible voice acting, but I guess that's the charm of Resident Evil. And not to forget that even though this game has multiple endings, they aren't really anything too special or different from each other, so make sure to keep that in mind. But I'm going to move on to graphics now, so let's go. Good graphics, PS1. Two words I don't really hear together that often, and to be honest it's the same with Resident Evil. Now I'm not going to knock this game down completely. I mean, it is a PlayStation 1 game, so I can kind of cut it some slack, but let's be honest here. This game isn't really the best looking PlayStation 1 game, but what RE1 does have sorted is its atmosphere. You can imagine when you're exploring the mansion how grim and disgusting the environments really are, and as if you're actually there. And the game, it does a decent enough job of conveying that. Other elements of the graphics, such as character models and environments and a few items, are really good and sometimes really bad. Your enemies, for example, tend to look spot on, but when it comes to your main characters like Jill or Chris, depending on what camera angle you're looking at them from, well, they can look a bit dodgy. Overall though, RE1, it has your bog standard graphics with dark and grimy environments, your bloodied enemies, and of course the funny looking character models, but you don't play a game like this for its graphics, so let's talk gameplay. So here we are, the grand finale, gameplay, and as we all know, Resident Evil, especially the earlier titles, were a bit tough yet fun when it came to actually playing them. In Resident Evil, you have the choice of either playing as Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine, my favourite, with both characters offering slightly different instances of story interaction and gameplay. Chris being the harder character, he's a bit more tougher. He's generally got a tougher storyline. But Jill, she's a bit more friendlier to newcomers, and I'm pretty sure she has an expanded inventory as well, but I actually can't quite remember. Whoops. But when actually playing the game, it's all about your survival and how you manage your inventory, with a sprinkling of hard puzzles here and there just to throw you off. The whole game is just one big test of player survival, because you're going to be getting a lot thrown at you in this game, and it's going to get tough, I can assure you. But what's great is that it's going to make you think, and it's going to make you wonder how you need to proceed through your environment, what you need to bring with you, what you need to leave. Overall, it's great fun. And there's another important element which I just mentioned before, and it's of course the puzzles, and I'm just going to make this very quick. For me, they were actually quite hard to figure out the first time round. I did end up using a walkthrough because I just got that frustrated, but you know what? It's Resident Evil. You have to expect puzzles, and yes, a few of them can be quite fun, but just be ready for them. However, there is one major issue that often annoys me, and I know this is quite controversial because it's a classic Resident Evil thing, but Jesus, these tank controls, they really suck. Now, I ain't gonna bother explaining what tank controls are because you know what tank controls are. This control scheme, it makes it very hard to precisely navigate around environments, and you can forget about turning at a normal speed because it just ain't happening. But I can say though, it's understandable for the time the game was made in, it's a 3D game and all that sorts. Control schemes were a bit iffy back then. To summarise though, Resident Evil, it has your 3 points covered. It has survival, it's got action, and of course puzzles, so you've got quite a bit of diversity here and there, and even though the controls suck, it hopefully won't get in the way of enjoying a classic game like this. To finish this review, I want to say one last thing. Resident Evil for the PlayStation 1 is certainly a classic game, we all know this, and one you at least have to play just once. Is it a perfect game? Of course not, no game is, but if you're a fan of survival games or you just want to experience something that would truly test your skills as a gamer, then play Resident Evil Director's Cut, because it's got the fun gameplay, it has an awesome set of characters, it's got horrible voice acting which is both a pro and a con, it also has a great soundtrack and a lot more that you'll surely uncover for yourself. But for now, you've been watching my review for Resident Evil Director's Cut for the PlayStation 1. Thank you very much, and I'll catch you guys next time.